Packers vs. Bears. The rivalry between the Packers and Bears isn't just the NFL's oldest rivalry, it's the most played, most storied, and arguably the most respected. Dating all the way back to 1921, Packers vs. Bears is a time capsule of football history. Lombardi, Halas, Favre, Butkus, Rodgers, Ditka. Every chapter of NFL greatness has bled into this rivalry at some point. The Packers currently lead the series, and that's a recent shift. For decades, the Bears had the upper hand, especially in the hard-hitting, run-the-ball-down-your-throat days. But once Brett Favre showed up in Green Bay in the 90s, followed by Aaron Rodgers, the tables turned, and they stayed turned for nearly 3 decades. What makes this rivalry so unique is the clash in identity. Chicago has always prided itself on defense, toughness, and gritty football. Green Bay, quarterback royalty, high-powered offenses, and cold-weather confidence. When these two meet, there's always something extra in the air. It's history in motion. Giants vs. Eagles. This NFC East clash is loud, scrappy, and always entertaining, even when one team is down bad. The Giants-Eagles rivalry goes back to 1933, and it's had just about every dramatic element you could want. Walk-off wins, blown leads, sideline fights, and miracle finishes. If there's one moment that truly lit the fire, it's the miracle at the Meadowlands in 1978. The Giants had the game won. They literally just had to kneel the ball. Instead, they tried to run a play, fumbled, and Eagles cornerback Herman Edwards scooped it up and ran it back for the game-winning touchdown. It was chaos, it was stupid, and it became legend. But the rivalry didn't stop there. Deshaun Jackson's walk-off punt return in 2010, dubbed Miracle at Meadowlands 2, basically crushed New York's playoff hopes and made Tom Coughlin lose his mind on live TV. These two fan bases hate each other, and it's easy to see why. Cowboys vs. Eagles. If the Giants and Eagles rivalry is old-school scrappy, the Cowboys-Eagles feud is just pure venom. There's no mutual respect, no quiet admiration, just 60 minutes of disdain twice a year. It's not just the games, it's the attitude. Philly fans booed Santa Claus, threw snowballs at Jimmy Johnson, and still chant, "Dallas sucks," even when they're not playing the Cowboys. Dallas, on the other hand, has always styled itself as America's team. That alone makes them a target, and Philly loves being the anti-hero. The rivalry really got personal in the late 80s and early 90s with the infamous Bounty Bowls, allegations that Eagles coaches put bounties on Cowboys players. That set the tone for decades of nastiness, including the rivalry boiling over into actual fights on the field and post-game scuffles. In recent years, the balance has shifted back and forth, but that heated rivalry is still there. Cowboys vs. 49ers. Cowboys-49ers was the headline matchup of the 1990s. 3 straight NFC Championship games, a Hall of Fame cast on both sidelines. Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders, Steve Young, Jerry Rice. But it actually started earlier than that. The 1981 NFC Championship game gave us the catch. Dwight Clark leaping in the back of the end zone for a Joe Montana pass that broke Dallas' hearts and launched the 49ers dynasty. What makes this rivalry special is how it always seems to resurface. After a couple decades of silence, it came back strong in the 2020s. The 49ers knocked the Cowboys out of the playoffs twice back-to-back in 2021 and 2022. Both were gut-wrenching losses for Dallas, especially the one where Dak Prescott forgot to spike the ball in time. Even when they aren't scheduled, fans of both teams circle the possibility of a playoff clash. It's nostalgia meets new blood, and it never disappoints. Patriots vs. Jets. There's Petty, and then there's Bill Belichick resigning from the Jets via a napkin and becoming the Patriots head coach the next day. That moment set the tone for one of the most toxic rivalries in modern football. This AFC East feud isn't historic in the same way as Packers-Bears, but what it lacks in age, it makes up for in drama. You've got the Spygate scandal, where the Patriots were caught filming jet signals. You've got Rex Ryan and his trash talk era, where he openly said he wasn't scared of Brady, only to lose repeatedly. You've even got former Patriots players defecting to the Jets and vice versa. The truth is, it's been a pretty one-sided affair. The Patriots under Belichick and Brady own the Jets for 2 decades, but the hate has never died. Now with the Patriots trying to rebuild, the script could flip again. Either way, when these teams meet, expect fireworks. Steelers vs. Ravens. This might be the most physically brutal rivalry in the modern NFL. Every time these two meet, you can feel it in your bones. The rivalry kicked off when the Browns moved to Baltimore in 1996 and became the Ravens. From day one, it was personal. These teams are built the same. Tough defenses, gritty coaches, and old-school AFC North football. For years, it was Ray Lewis versus Hines Ward, Troy Polamalu versus Joe Flacco, James Harrison versus literally anyone in purple. And it's not just the games, it's the stakes. These two have clashed in the playoffs multiple times, including an absolutely violent AFC championship in 2008 that Pittsburgh won on their way to their 6th Super Bowl. The games are usually close, low-scoring, and emotionally charged. Even now, with new blood like Lamar Jackson and TJ Watt, the energy hasn't dipped. You could put this game on a Thursday night in a rainstorm, and fans would still treat it like a Super Bowl. It's just that kind of rivalry. Raiders vs. Chiefs. Welcome to the old AFL's angriest, loudest, most chaotic rivalry, Raiders vs. Chiefs. This one is fueled by decades of bad blood, cheap shots, and fan bases that absolutely cannot stand each other. It all began in the 1960s when the AFL was still trying to carve out space next to the NFL. The Raiders were the rebels, the Chiefs were the polished assassins, and every time they met, it turned into a dogfight. Kansas City currently leads the series, and for the past several years, it's been lopsided, but don't let that distract you from the depth of hatred between these two franchises. Raiders fans still remember when Chiefs lineman Jack Tatum delivered bone-crushing hits in the 70s. Chiefs fans still hold a grudge for the many dirty plays and trash talk that came from the Al Davis era. Even in down years, Raiders-Chiefs feels intense. Arrowhead gets loud, the Raiders bring attitude. And if the game gets close, expect flags, scuffles, and at least one moment that goes viral on Twitter. Chiefs vs. Broncos. While the Raiders' rivalry is about history and hate, the Chiefs-Broncos rivalry is more about competition and timing. This AFC West clash has been shaped by Hall of Fame quarterbacks, iconic coaches, and season-altering upsets. Back in the 90s, the Broncos were on fire. John Elway was leading late-game comebacks, and Denver eventually won back-to-back Super Bowls. At the same time, Kansas City had a loaded defense and the Arrowhead mystique. These two teams hated losing to each other, and it showed. In 1997, the Broncos ended Kansas City's dream season in the playoffs. That loss cut deep, and the Chiefs fans still bring it up, but the script flipped hard once Patrick Mahomes took over in KC. Since 2015, the Chiefs have won 16 straight games against the Broncos, an absurd stat that tilted the rivalry hard in one direction. Still, the games remain charged. Denver wants that streak to end. Chiefs fans treat every win like another feather in their dynasty cap. And with both teams built for physical, explosive football, it only takes one good game to make the fire burn hot again. Colts vs. Patriots. This rivalry wouldn't exist without Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. For a stretch in the 2000s, Colts vs. Patriots was the game. It was the main event, the headline, the battle that felt bigger than the Super Bowl itself. The storylines were perfect. Manning was the golden boy, the brainiac quarterback putting up some insane numbers in Indy. Brady was the 6th-round underdog turned cold-blooded winner in Foxborough. And their clashes? Instant classics. The Patriots dominated early. From 2001 to 2004, they repeatedly denied Manning in the playoffs, including back-to-back conference title heartbreaks. But then in 2006, Manning finally got his revenge, leading a 21-point comeback in the AFC Championship and going on to win his first ring. Even when the players changed, the tension stuck. Belichick versus the Colts front office, the infamous Deflategate scandal in 2015, which started off after a Colts blowout loss, only added fuel to the fire. Now the rivalry has cooled off a bit with Brady gone. Manning has long retired, but whenever these teams meet, the shadow of those epic battles still lingers. You can almost hear Jim Nantz setting the stage. It just feels big. Vikings vs. Packers. When Minnesota and Green Bay meet, it's more than a game. It's a border war. These two teams don't just share a division, they share a region, a climate, and a stubborn pride that bleeds deep into their fan bases. It started back in 1961 when the Vikings entered the league. Green Bay was already a powerhouse with Lombardi and Bart Starr. Minnesota spent years trying to catch up, and when they finally did, things got spicy. Both franchises have had legendary runs, Packers with Favre and Rodgers, Vikings with Fran Tarkenton, Randy Moss, and the Minneapolis Miracle era. What gives this rivalry some extra kick is how close the games tend to be. Over the decades, it's remained surprisingly balanced with wild swings. And nothing infuriates Vikings fans more than watching their team come up short again at Lambeau. Meanwhile, Packers fans still love to remind the world that they've had back-to-back generational quarterbacks while Minnesota's been through a quarterback carousel. And let's not forget, Brett Favre once played for both teams, which felt like football heresy at the time. The whole state of Wisconsin probably needed therapy after that move. Saints vs. Buccaneers. For years, this was just another division game. The Saints usually had the upper hand, the Bucs were struggling to stay relevant, and outside of a few chippy moments, it flew under the radar. But when Tom Brady came to Tampa Bay in 2020, everything changed. Suddenly the Bucs were Super Bowl contenders, and the Saints became the final boss he couldn't beat. At first. In fact, New Orleans swept the Bucs during the regular season that year, including a 38-3 demolition in prime time. Then came the playoffs. Brady finally got his revenge, knocking off the Saints in the divisional round in what turned out to be Drew Brees' final game. It was emotional, bitter, and symbolic. A passing of the torch moment, wrapped in rivalry tension. Since then, the two teams have traded blows with games full of fights, ejections, and wild momentum swings. Mike Evans vs. Marshawn Lattimore is basically its own subplot now. Those two just can't stop going at it. It's not the longest running rivalry, but lately, it's been pure chaos. Falcons vs. Saints. Now this rivalry is all about hate, not historical prestige, not playoff history, just raw, unfiltered, neighbor-on-neighbor hate. The Falcons and Saints have been trading jabs since 1967. No one outside the South really cared for a while, but inside Atlanta and New Orleans, these games meant everything. These teams represent their cities like few others. Atlanta's swagger versus New Orleans' soul, and they've spent decades trying to tear each other down. What makes this matchup so good is that it's almost always unpredictable. Even in years when one team is clearly better, the underdog usually finds a way to make things ugly. Just look back at the Saints' 13-3 season in 2019. One of their 3 losses came to a 2-7 Falcons team that beat them in New Orleans. You can't script it. There's also a healthy dose of trolling between fans. Saints fans bring up 28-3 like it's gospel. Falcons fans remind them about Bountygate and playoff meltdowns. It's petty, it's personal, and it's not going away anytime soon. Giants vs. Cowboys. Two of the biggest markets. Two of the most recognizable teams. Every time the Giants and Cowboys square off, it feels like the whole country's watching, because it usually is. These two seem to be locked into every Week 1 Sunday Night Football game ever, and even when the rosters are mediocre, the stakes feel huge. The rivalry began back in 1960, but it really caught fire in the 80s and 90s when both teams were competing for NFC supremacy. The Cowboys had Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and that dominant offensive line. The Giants had Bill Parcells, Lawrence Taylor, and some of the nastiest defenses of the era. Over the years, there have been massive swings. Dallas owns the overall series lead, but New York has had its moments, including 2 Super Bowl runs in the Eli Manning era that made Cowboys fans grind their teeth. Today, the rivalry is fueled by primetime games, close finishes, and a mutual hatred that never fades. Whether it's a game-winning catch by Dez Bryant or a spectacular Saquon Barkley run, something headline-worthy always seems to happen when these two collide. Eagles vs. Packers. This one doesn't get as much national hype, but when the Eagles and Packers meet, it always seems to mean something. From playoff battles to wild comebacks, there's a quiet intensity to this matchup that's grown over time. The Eagles actually have a winning record against Green Bay, including a 3-1 edge in the postseason. That's not something many teams can say. One of those wins came in the 2003 wildcard round, which featured the famous 4th and 26 play, when Freddie Mitchell kept Philly alive with a miraculous catch, and the Eagles eventually won in overtime. Packers fans still have nightmares about it. Then you've got the more recent matchups, like the 2019 Thursday night game when Carson Wentz outdueled Aaron Rodgers in a shootout at Lambeau. Or the time Jalen Hurts ran all over the Packers on a cold night in Philly. There's no deep-seated hate here, but what you get is two proud franchises with rich traditions, excellent fan bases, and a tendency to throw haymakers at each other every time they meet. It's respect with a grudge. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell so you can stay up to date with our recent posts. See you in the next video.